The Philippines' first and leading crypto exchange, coins.ph. 60 cryptocurrencies to trade, like Bitcoin, USDT, and more. Enjoy low fees, favorable rates, and a smooth cash in and out experience. Download coins.ph now.
All right. Good evening, Kacoin Community, and welcome back sa ating Coin Community Wednesdays. For tonight, we are going to be talking to a local founder and getting his insights on his own project, Crucial World. So I guess, we'd like to know more about local NFT founders and local IPs and to see how we can take these, local projects, these local visions and bring them up to a global stage and showcase Filipinos and the talent that they have, no? To the wider ecosystem. So I'm super excited to invite Joe of Crucial World. It's not his first time on the stage, but I'm excited to be co-hosting the show and for the first time being able to talk to Joe about his insights, being a founder and a leader, and a visionary for Filipino Web3. So I'd like to welcome up on stage Mr. Joe Josue of Crucial World. Joe, how are you? Good evening. How are you doing on this Wednesday evening?
Good evening, Jaffa. Nice to be here again. Always good to be with the coin community. Is my audio okay?
Yeah, it's a bit soft right now, Joe, but we can hear you. So yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's always good to be here. I'm happy to be back, and always good to share things with the coin community.
Yep. So thank you so much, Joa. So for tonight's discussion, guys, don't forget that later during the second half of our show, we are going to be drawing community questions, and the theme for tonight's show is taking a PH Web3 project from local to global. So I'd love to hear the story of Crucial World and of Joe, as a local founder, and we'll be taking questions with regards to the theme as usual. And if your question is chosen, don't forget to open a ticket in our Discord with your coins, email, and phone, and you'll be getting a cash prize for your community questions. So hop on over to our Discord as well because we do giveaways in our Discord and also have a game for the coin community later on. So I guess Joe, maybe you can start off before we get over to our AMA portion, no? So maybe you can introduce what you do and your project as well. And for those who might be first time viewers who are unfamiliar with what you do, yeah, maybe tell them a little bit about yourself, your story as well.
Yeah, sure, of course. So I'll try to keep the very abridged version because despite us Pinoys, we look young, pero matanda na ako. So I've been in content businesses and now in tech for 13 years. In gaming for 7 now, and in Web3 since 2020. I'm most known in Web3 as one of the founders of Metasports, a venture studio and agency in Web3. We were the first ever to do esports professionally for games like Axie and a bunch of other games that looked into esports and content. We also invested in creators in Web3, and manage some of those IPs. So people like Cuckoo, who people might know, Yellow Panther, and even some of the Web2 side, we're kind of bleeding into Web3, like Oasis Gaming. That company I have founded and led as a CEO, and that was acquired in 2023. I've also built a few other businesses in this space, especially in gaming. I founded an app called Jin that got acquired last month, which is gaming inventory for Web3. And I've been kind of always building a few things. So I'm also founder of a game in Web3 called Jutsu. And one of the things that was very personal to me was, as probably I'm talking about here, is I was part of a community takeover and acquisition of the Crucial World NFT project, which was I think one of the more hyped, I would say, or successful minted out projects in I guess, bull to bear of the previous cycle. I was not the founder. I'm not the founder technically, but I was part of the community. One of I think the more committed backers and supports the community. And when essentially the project got abandoned by the original team, me and many of the core committee members decided not to give up on it. I championed that, and now we've been building Kusha back into life. And now I guess I like to think some level of momentum and a success for the past 1.5 years now.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Joe. Yeah, and I mean, like, I do see like some of the stuff you talk about as well on the timeline. It's been so cool to see, like the brand come to life, and all of the merch as well that's been cooking. So I'm excited to hear more about those new things as well. Through maybe some of your anecdotes and your stories later. So I guess we can proceed with our Q&A portion. And, I'd like to get your insights as well to some of the, questions that, will relate back to our theme. So I'll be flashing them on screen so that the other people in the audience can also, see the main question and the insights that Joe will be giving. So the first question is, so what unique strengths or qualities do you think Filipino Web3 brands can bring to the global ecosystem?
Oh wow. What unique strengths? Uh, I think there are actually quite a lot. But I think even before that, like taking half step back, I think the biggest challenge to some of this is that we actually have so much talent in this space. And a lot of the reason why I became, and I'm still very passionate about having acquired and leading Kusho was that I think so much of the talent we have in this space is hidden behind a lot of Filipinos fear. I mean, maraming takot na Pinoy because of the reputation sometimes built by bad actors in the last run. There was a lot of essentially a lot of Pinoys who are afraid to actually even say that they're Pinoy, no? Which I think is one of the saddest things in the space. So that I think is like the half step back, right? I think that there's actually so much unique qualities of Filipinos in the space, and many people don't know how many real builders are actually Filipino, but don't say they are in like the top multi-million projects around the globe, right? And so I've had the blessing, I think, of rebuilding Kush and getting to talk to a lot of talent in the space, especially anonymous individual talent. And I think that we underestimate sometimes the amount of developer talent is actually by Filipinos Web3, right? It may seem trivial, but as in a space that's very technical, that's one of the bigger ones, I think. I think the community building aspect, right, is completely underappreciated. Um, you might not know, if people here are still active in Web3, you might not know that some of the mods that you encounter in projects are actually Filipinos, right? They're just very eloquent and active. So I think those are kind of like these skill strengths that I think are quite unique to Web3. Or not unique to Web3, but I think Filipinos quite excel in. No? And then the other part, I think, in terms of qualities, I don't know if people know this, but we are the most online nation in the world. We average 10, the Filipino average Filipino, like, and then our population averages 10 hours a day online. The next countries are low 9 hours. So meaning that we are actually just so much more online native than many other places. And I think people underestimate nga na that's a quality that puts us at an advantage to be more Web3 native and more, I think, capable. And then the other quality is we're also very, I think, more globally exposed to commerce because of remittances, from all of W economy, all of this. And so when you start touching crypto and blockchain commerce, technically, mas malapit pa nga tayo. We're one of the most natural suited, no, to contribute and be a big deal in Web3. So yeah, and I think that's pretty much my top of mind where I think we have an advantage both in skill strength and quality. Mm-mm.
Mhm. Yep, thanks, Joe. Yeah, I guess just to add to that too, I recall seeing a statistic or like a fun fact before, no, na parang Manila or the Philippines is like the social media capital of the world. And
Mm.
sometimes, you think about before, like, is that something to be, I guess, proud of? Because maybe at the time, social media had stigma, or people are like, okay, people are always on their phone. But now that we have this digital economy, especially post pandemic, digital communities also being formed. I think it's really bullish nga because as people also mentioned on the show, it opens up so many like windows for opportunities also for Filipinos to participate in this new economy, to find roles and opportunities, that might not be, I guess, present or accessible to just, the local scene. And yeah, as you mentioned, a lot of the people who are in the space, are Filipinos, like maybe your community managers or your moderators. But as you mentioned, they're sometimes afraid to say nga that they are Filipino, na Pinoy sila, because of that stigma that bad actors brought upon to, our name in the previous cycle. So I guess we're also constructively, like, or I guess actively, trying to change that as well, and to really show the world, like, that this is what our people, our talent are like. And that, we're also, like, because we're so many in this space, we're actively, writing and making the narrative a better one for all of the Pinoys out there. So thank you for
Mm.
that. Yeah. And I guess for our second question, no, um, so I guess you, Joe, how do you like to showcase, those qualities to an international audience while staying true to, like, your local roots? And you can also, pull from your experiences and all your other projects as well. And yeah, if your experience as well with, Kusho right now.
So I can talk about my personal experience and what I'm trying to advocate for now. So I think early on when I got into Web3, I was a kind of like a Web2 or traditional business founder. So we normally in like traditional business, the founders or CEOs, unless you're like a huge company na, like, di ba, usually parang hindi ka naman masyadong public face, pang PR lang, pang press. But what was so interesting about Web3 nga, is that it's one of the best places to learn, which is now the new norm, even in Web2, right? Where the leaders are actually very public figures, right? And I think that is where it wasn't my idea. I think I very early on learned that it was a good, not only technique for a founder, not to be public, to build in public and talk very public. And I know marami nagsasabi build in public, pero totoo lang, it's actually a lot harder to do, right? And I took inspiration from certain Filipinos who were already very vocal on Twitter, no, even before me. Like people like Gabby Dizon of YGG, people like Kuku, even before YG was very vocal in creating content, no. Even the founders of Coins even before Wave, we're all very kind of vocal, right? And so when I saw that happening as a trend, I swallowed my pride and my yung pagka-introvert ko. Sabi ko, don't think about it. Just talk about what you're building and tweet. Talk about it, tweet. And thankfully, I'm a comfortable speaker because of like training before. Pero, tweeting your thoughts is a very different parang game. So, in terms of what I mean by qualities, that I think what I mentioned earlier, nga na many Filipinos are afraid to be themselves, or I think afraid to show they're Filipino. I think that's one of the things that we don't do enough as a people. No, kala mo kailangan content creator ka para maging regular posting, to build a brand or a name, to show it internationally. I think, being a proud Filipino on the global stage, where again, if you're in Web3, automatic global na yan eh. Well, there's no way, because that's how crypto and blockchain works. So you're exposed, you're all the ways. I think being a proud Filipino is one of the best ways to showcase it. So you pair that with the skills and qualities you already have as a person, whether you be, a mod, a dev, a designer, an artist, and you do your craft, right? You do your specialty, you bring forth your value, but being able to know and be proud that you're Filipino. So kahit sa akin, I think many people, I'm trying to be more of an example for that, and I think at some level I've been able to help with that. Pero I'm also standing on the shoulders of giants. Like I would not be able to do this if people nga like Gabby were not so vocal. And there's a time when daming tao sa Twitter and all in their hype when everyone is changing their name to their handle. But I saw certain people like that who were really just carrying the real name. Yung iba nga may Filipino flag pa. And now in the bear, doon ako na, I think I got heartbroken, where many people in the bear market started removing the Philippine flag in their bio. And I don't have a Philippine flag, but I'm very vocally Filipino. No? So I think showcasing qualities. I don't think the problem, kasi personally, is na we don't have qualities to show. I think it's that we're just afraid to talk about and people don't vocalize it enough. Eh kung ano naman kung mag-Pilipino tayo sa Twitter, who cares? Like dapat meron, dapat komportable tayo kahit sa Web3, di ba? You see nga the whole like Latam region always talking in Spanish. Why can't we talk in Filipino? Ba't tayo mag-Taglish, di ba? So that's in terms of showcasing quality. And yes, I think there are certain barriers to being a Filipino, or differences between cultures. But again, if there's not one industry or sector for us to champion and lead, parang this is the best one, diba?
I
So
agree.
that's my take on it. Mm.
Yep, thanks, Joe. No, yeah, I mean, when you said that you were heartbroken that people were taking off like the flags from their bio, or they're afraid to showcase it. It's like your sense of connection, no, with the Filipino community in Web3. It's like parang people are leaving, no, and it's a bit disheartening to see that. So when you talk about that with passion, I mean, yeah, it's really like it's saddening to see that people kind of turn away from that. But yeah, as you mentioned, being proud about it, showcasing your culture, your language in a space that really enables, the free flowing exchange of ideas and of nationalities. Yeah, it's really like this is our industry, our chance to really show to the world like what we're all about, and having the right community and the right circle of people to join you in on that mission is it's really like as you mentioned, you're standing on the shoulders of giants, but you're also like trying to pay it forward and make a better name for the Filipinos in the space. So awesome to hear, Joe. Yeah, thank you so much for that.
Mm.
I guess to move on, to our next, question for the AMA. So I guess how do you see your brand, no? And I guess brand can be like your project, but also like your personal brand. I guess when I think about the question, contributing to a larger narrative about Filipino talent in the global Web3 space.
So let's try and compartmentalize a little bit. But to be honest, I feel like it's very hard to detach me at this stage from Kusho, no? And Kusho Worlds as a project. So I think I'll do it from the lens of Kusho World first because I really feel it's a bit of a hot a hot pot and the amalgamation of the community and my beliefs, with the talent that's brought forth, and currently what's magical about Kusho is that a lot of our base community are actually younger. They're fresh grads to students. And I think that we don't give enough credit that that age group actually is more Web3 native. In fact,
Right.
the first founders of Kusho were university students who we were advising at a certain point, right? So this tech and the way the economy works and the opportunities has actually drawn more of that generation to be more recipient or more okay essentially with crypto and blockchain as an industry and as a technology, So one side of that is that that's the place that we're being focused more on local, meaning that we think that if we try to chase a bag in crypto, we're not really building for the adoption of technology for the next generation. That's why if you look even at, I am not a streetwear guy, but if you followed our Twitter and our focus, we launched a web store that's crypto native, and the apparel line is like crisp Filipino streetwear. And I don't wear streetwear, but that's what it means because our audience and our community are primarily younger, and that resonates with the university audiences and larger population that we work with and we've contributed to, right? And then the other side of that barbell is that, and I'm very proud of this. I think many of the original or OG contributors and builders in Web3, na Filipino, you may not know it, but actually hold kushos. So there is like a small, and I'm very humbled by this, army of the original builders, and amongst all the other NFT projects, kind of like from the last cycle being dead, the Filipino, I think we might be one of the last, if not the last remaining one. And many of the build like the industry titans, right? I think the Filipino hold Kusho. So they are again the shoulders, the giant shoulders that we also are able to tap into, and I like to contribute and try to be in that also in that side of that world because of my success in somewhere like Metasports. I was global to give that link, hopefully, from the next generation to the builders now trying to lay the groundwork for the next one. So that's how we're kind of trying to link that into a community that blends both. And you can see, I don't know that's very different for me because that's what I'm trying to do as well. I have projects that are inherently global reaching, like my game and others. But Kusho itself is trying to link that, and myself being a proud Filipino, trying to foster a community of builders, who are also building products around Kusho and experiences and content. Na proud. Yeah. So I don't know if that's what everyone's doing, but that's how I'm doing it and our community is doing it. And it not be possible also without the Filipinos from the previous cycle who are still building on a global level. Mhm.
Awesome. Yep. So yeah, I guess you mentioned that you aren't so much of a streetwear person, right? But a lot of that, as you mentioned, yeah, is because your audience is really like into that. So I think it's cool, no, the identifying your community talaga, and then like building for them is something that Web3 really enables as well. So yeah, I mean, it's cool to me talaga because like I might not be a streetwear person myself, but when I know that it's from a community of people like me who want to build also for the future, it's like you can get the idea, like the philosophy, I guess, and
Yeah.
you can resonate with that as well. So yeah, I mean, it's something that I'd also like to explore and learn more about. No? And as you mentioned, we go back to that I guess motif of standing on the shoulders of giants. No, so I think one thing that's actively being built, I guess, by community builders who are still here is really like the history as well of like the people or the Filipinos who are like workers in the metaverse, or like people who
Mm.
are continuing to teach those, like as you mentioned, because you cater to like a university student audience or younger audiences. Now, like who came before us, and then like they're a part of that history, and you're also going to be a part of that history. So I think that's a pretty cool concept to know that there's like a lineage or like my kasaysayan, that they'll be
Oh,
also.
exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Yep.
Exactly.
So I guess for our next question, so maybe for those, as you mentioned, who you want to pave the way for. So what advice would you give to other Filipino Web3 founders, community builders, and leaders, who want to maintain, I guess, like a local focus first, and then eventually showcase their work like to a wider audience? Because as we mentioned, yeah, like Web3 is very global; it's international by nature. So I'm sure that our your first communities, you'll find them amongst your countrymen, and then as you grow along the way, like your message will resonate probably with other people. So I guess maybe what insights or what advice would you give to those who are like aspiring founders as well in the space?
I could be a little bit controversial here, because I've done consulting or trying to help other founders who are local, who are trying to do more local focuses to onboard for our country, and build something local focused in Web3. I think the hard part is that, and this is not only to Web3. I think we as a Filipino people also sometimes um, are not great with facing realities of sustainability of your organization and the money involved. But you in Web3, you are forced, and I think that's actually good, na mas public yung nature ng money to make things work. In so much that I think one of the most toxic traits you see locally in wider industry, but also the Web3 itself, is parang uh, like, people do things out of, I think some of builders I've seen and founders try to build organizations that help onboard Filipinos or focus local, want to start off like a very altruistic or parang volunteerism, slight ano yun? Non-profit vibe, right? Non-profit approach. And at the moment these founders start trying to make it sustainable, they get attacked, but for trying to make it sustainable, because the sometimes like a Filipino, again, not Web3, but Filipino trait that we have that's pretty toxic. I admit to, as a Filipino, as a country, is that once we don't see the money, all of a sudden you think that they're skimming money, because we've been victims of that, right? So, but again, if you're as founders in Web3, many are not comfortable or have not been trained or have not been mentored how to talk about where the money goes or how they plan to make their organization sustainable, right? So the dream is very sexy to be a founder, but to be honest, if you've ever been a real CEO, nobody wants to be a CEO. No one actually wants to be. It's a very thankless and difficult project. But I think, so for me, I think there's two prongs of it. I think that the founder side, you have to be very honest, and you have to know once you get into Web3 that you have to know how you're going to go about your numbers with your community. Very real. Your mission business. And I think for the people, if you're more of a community member or builder, Metaverse Filipino worker, contributor, yes, it's your absolute right to demand transparency and to demand that, but it's also um, I think we hold sometimes people to the standard of what they start with it too tightly, because all these people doing work need a way to make it sustainable. I'm just very blessed that I've done a lot of businesses before this, and I can communicate to the communities to do it. But we need to take advantage na in crypto nga. The money's already, it's all there. It's not transparent. It's already part of the conversation. So let's make it actually part of the conversation again, right? And that's one of the things that and another one is that I talked about this at the Future Summit recently. My biggest frustration sometimes with the Filipino founder or setup sometimes is that um, why many don't design a way for actual token or incentive upside with your community or your audience or your staff. Because if you don't do that, ba't pa tayo nandito? Right? So that's one of the things. That's how I've seen many founders Web3 complain about retention, right? And that's one of the things. So once you get, so okay, so let me wrap up the thought here. So in terms of like, how does that go to a global audience? Because if you cannot do that, you'll never get over the hump to even get global, right? And showcase it global. Then I think in terms if you want to balance doing your a local situation with global, um, I'm so sorry. I feel like I've medyo controversial naman yung mga take ko dito, Java. But I just want to try to be more honest, I think, about
Yeah,
what's
it's good for
going
the
on.
discussion.
I think, yeah, I think that I think more of the baseline really there is that you have to actually know your numbers. I think you have to be honest that it may not be a traditional business, but the way the commerce and sustainability flows, you have to have an idea or a vision of how that will work. Because that will matter as well when you showcase it to the world. That's really it.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I remember also like I was listening to your thoughts as well about like that idea of community commerce, no? So yeah, as you mentioned also, um, showing like being transparent and showing telling communicating with your community, how do you make it sustainable? Because I guess as you mentioned, yeah, like that can be a topic also that can get to some people. Now, if you want to start making your project like sustainable for you as a founder and as a leader, um, sometimes I think people might, as you mentioned, hold you to the standard at the start, but then as your needs evolve and the scope evolves, also you kind of have to find ways not to make your project like sustainable, I guess. So that's where that topic does come in. So yeah, um, just gonna plug also to the community, so don't forget to send in your questions in the comments or in the Discord wherever you're watching for Joe. Um, I mean, he's a local founder. So, if you are an aspiring founder as well, and even if you did mention that being a founder is sexy and all of that, I think we can all learn from one another, and his insights are very much respected. So, yeah, don't forget to send in your questions. So, I guess we can move on to some of the community questions as well, Joe. And I guess yeah, let's I guess take one from our Discord first. So I'll show it on screen now. So um, this goes back again to like the qualities of Filipinos, and yeah, going back to that local focus, I guess. So this one's a bit more of like I guess a vision question. So the question is from Troy on our Discord. So what motivates you to bring crypto adoption to the Philippines, and what qualities of Filipinos make you especially proud in this journey?
Great questions. What motivates me? You know, I mentioned it earlier. I just honestly think, and not just that my feel, I really think, I think strategically, it is one of the best opportunity spaces for any Filipino, as long as you have an internet connection, to possibly meaningfully improve your economic status and economic class in life. By far. Anyway, that's what I just think. I think with the ability and the natural skills that Filipinos are able to do and the nativeness of the internet, um, while it's challenging to be Filipino in the space in some aspects, it is also one of the lesser discriminatory places as long as you can bring value and have skills, right? So I'm very passionate because many parts of the technology make sense for us as Filipinos, right? Like I recently partnered with a company called Stables.money, which is a wallet app. And um, many Filipino, there are billions that are remitted to the Philippines from OFWs. And if you use normal payment traditional gateways, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I get disconnected. It takes a huge chunk of percent of actual what they pay. But now, if you use an app like Stables or use stable coins that are paid through coins, Stables at Money, which is partnered with coins as well, right? The remittance fee is negligible. So the only thing you're doing is actually supporting, in fact, the off-ramping of technology that is the coins, which is supports local already, and for so much less of a cost, right? In fact, if you can already also do commerce within on-chain, you're even spending less, right? Before you even have to on-ramp for life. So that's just an example of one type of advantage, two types of advantage. One, working in the space and getting economic upliftment with lower barrier to entry. And then two, remittances, which obviously is a huge part of our economy at a fraction of the cost. So for me, that's the first part of the question. For the second part, what makes qualities of Philippines make you especially proud in this journey? I think that when I talk to all these people who are now part of Kusho or in the industry in the past year and a half, na nakatago na Pinoy, and then they tell me that they wish they didn't have to. For me, that is, I don't know if it's quality, but that's hope, right? And I think that we just need to push a little harder because, again, the problem isn't the skill set. That for me, the two problems are: can we get over our own stigma, right? Can we build it as a community and as an industry? And number two, can we really make it an industry that you can tell your mother, your brother, your family about and be proud of? Because people don't. Some of the people I've talked to globally don't understand that how important it is to Pinoys. That matters, and that's actually going to affect how our industry grows. So again, the skills are there. It's more of, I think, social aspects that are a little bit hurdle for us. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah. Um, as you mentioned, so yeah, the low barrier of entry really brought in a lot of people, I guess, especially with like the last cycle. And I think a lot of people na, I think in my experience also as a community manager, I ask people, so how did you get started into crypto? A lot of them will mention, gaming or Axie. But then as time goes on, people will probably be coming in for different reasons, or they'll find a different project or community, um, so as you mentioned, like if you have an internet connection, you probably have access to crypto and to the communities that are present there. And I also like what you mentioned. The skills are there, but it's really about the social part of it, and getting over our own stigma as a community. Like, are you able to tell your family, your friends about what you do? Because I'm sure that there's still a lot of stigma for people, because it's easy to not see that when you're in crypto and you work in crypto, a lot of the people you interact with are bullish on crypto. But for there's still so many people outside of these communities, and quite frankly, it can be a bubble sometimes. No, like they don't understand it, and I think a lot of the stigma or the taboo of crypto really comes from a lack of financial literacy or technological literacy, media literacy, and education about the communities and what's being built here, and how to properly navigate and understand this industry that's emerging. So Troy, thank you for that question. No? Um, yeah, I guess for our next community question, so I guess this comes from Mark Jason Malikdem on our Facebook Live. So, I mean, we mentioned a lot of, like, just tie this in with what you already mentioned, but like, what cultural values do like Web3, Filipino Web3 brands integrate into their projects that, resonate globally?
That's a tough one because just to be transparent as well, I think that many Filipino Web3 brands build in different subsectors. So, example, like what we do at Kusho as a community protocol is very different from an exchange or a wallet, right? So, I think it's tough for me to fairly say like what as a blanket statement what Filipino Web3 brands integrated project that resonate globally. So I guess my best attempt at the answer for cultural values, I think, is we are a natural fit to the Web3 value of hospitality, which again sounds like a trope, I guess, or a simple answer, but you understand that in more mature industries, things are a little bit more cutthroat. And because we work in a space actually that is one, globally accessible, number one, and number two, the mindset of most is to grow the pie because yeah, crypto is still not as big a pie. We actually have the inclination and the luxury to lean in to giving more and being more hospitable, right? And you can translate that into the way that people do business, right? Um, I like to think that the Filipinos are also in these. If you go to the global events, are some of the best people to go to local event to go to events with, because so it's just a great vibe. So I think that is probably one of the more known values Filipinos are known for that I think just makes sense and that brands are integrating. Like if you're a builder in the industry, you'll know that I'm not sure if I'm assuming I'm allowed to say this, right? That the Coins team and the Coins office is one of the most hospitable spaces in the city, allowing builders to host events and host all these gatherings. That you can say that other countries kind of do that, but it's not the same as what I've seen Coins do. And that for me is an excellent example of hospitality. Like if you talk to anyone on the Coins team, if you're a builder talaga, you tell them and they go, you will probably have heard, "O tara, host yung sa office natin yan." Which is literally our values you know, put into reality. Yeah. So that's what I think that people also can feel globally from us.
Yeah, I mean, okay, Joe, I guess I'd also like to plug in, So as you mentioned, we love hosting events here at our HQ, and I like to think of it as the community manager. Now, we think of the Coins HQ as like a hub, diba? Because like if
Mm.
you need a venue and you want to partner, come to us. Like we love hosting community events, and because events are really where people network and meet up. And I guess if you put it that way, people know it as that kind of place, then thank you for that. And that's something that we really want to help is to help, nurture or like cultivate those meetups to get minds talking, get people going to events together, and to I guess read the group up and distribute again, since that's really what Web3 is all about, is the distribution, and how can communities really explore and promote new ideas. So yeah, let's I mean, if you want to do events, you can also talk to me and like the Coins Champions program. That's something we love doing also. So yep, thank you, Mark, Jason, Malik, them for that question of yours. No, so I'll get another question from our Discord for community question number 3. So this one comes from Huawei. So very similar. So with the Philippines known for its high engagement in online communities, how could Web3 and Kusho's ecosystem help build new social spaces that truly reward Filipino users? So pretty loaded question. So I'll give you time, Joe, if you want, or if you already have an answer for that.
Well, I don't know about. There's a greater answer thing for Web3. I can explain what we're kind of doing for Kusha. So, Kusha is what I call, or something I've been writing about, called a community protocol, meaning that we try to take what are things typically done for technological projects like dev repos and GitHubs and protocols like chains or dApps, and we apply the same working principles to community, right? Meaning that we're building an IP and an NFT project, all of that, that allows builders to build on top of it to create network effects for all of the community, the audience, and many, and I guess, new founders to build on top of it and share value together, right? So what does that mean for Kusha? I'll explain it because that's how I understand it, how we're trying to do it, and trying to advocate for more community to try something like this. So for our ecosystem, right? Again, half the time I don't even know where the Kusha community, like, it's so all around the Philippines, the people in this community. We have a contributor team of I think almost 20 plus now across a mini developer community, developer contributors, talented and global companies around the world, resident artists and contributing artists, moderators and host talents, brand people, and that's kind of like the composition of the contributor team. And what's happened for us as a protocol, again, highly all engaged. I didn't even know one of these people was like based in Batangas. I'd never known that we've been building together for a year now. Davao, Cebu. And what we do as a, as an ecosystem is that we take the insights of our core community and what we understand as a Filipino audience, create a rough idea of what we think is a product or experience that will serve a community, tie it to a particular community builder who has the talent to build that something in that sector, right? And then we help them build that product experience with co-owned with the community. So give me a few examples. Um, People always wanted us to have apparel kasi maganda yung kusho, the designs are very cool and everything. I'm a streetwear person, but people wanted it. And then and we knew that we didn't want to just do giveaways because that's not kind of like our situation. So what the community wanted, we understood what they wanted was actually to make an apparel line. And I was like, okay, look, I said I don't have experience with logistics of like drop shipping, manufacturing, all of that, right? But I know the business side of it. Kaya ko yan. So I'm like, okay. And we asked the community, will you actually purchase if we make a real well-designed product line? So I'm like, yes, okay, cool. Our brand lead, so yung brand contributor namin, goes up to our contributor team and goes, sir, actually, I've done online merch stores and logistics for all of this before, and I can do it. I can do all of that. It's like, oh my god, okay, sure, yes. It's like, okay, so now our actual classics apparel line was designed by her with contributing artists, and she actually co-owns the business and the entity of the protocol of our of our apparel line, right? So that business, that sector of the protocol, shares revenue with make her sustainable as working on Kusha as a protocol, shares revenue back to the treasury of the project, and it allows her to create more work with other people to contribute to the apparel. And with that, the community devs, they're the ones who helped set up our website that made it crypto native, figured out that you can do all the payments you can pay out with stable coins and stuff on Sol, Polygon, and ETH. And that now is a store that works that any other Kusha community builder can sell on. And that's part of that. So there's now two different builders now doing something with the IP and the distribution that brings back money to the protocol, what helps them become sustainable. Then there are many more examples of that. We have now a Filipino podcast with Pastor Kamote, a streamer, content creator, and he interviews Filipino builders. That is a podcast now on Spotify. We have a community engineer who did all the tech of the Spotify stuff. And then now we have interested sponsors, and that podcast is owned by the community and him. So any sponsors that go there, part of that goes back to the community protocol and its own sustainability. We have an arcade game system coming out because one of our devs community is a game dev apparently. And we're like, oh, parang we need kind of like these fun games because people always live in Discord in these games. And now he's the product lead of a gaming ecosystem that we're launching in 2 months. And so we have many examples of this, both in content and product and infrastructure. And that's what we're doing. And that's what we mean by it's a community protocol. And so for us, that's the kind of network effect we're trying to bring. And I think that many other communities could do something like that. Again, I'm also very transparent to the community. I try to be very transparent about the numbers, but I also know this has never been done before. So my projections look okay. We can keep growing with it, but it's really dependent on the network effects of the community and their cohort to get it to the right sustainable place. Yeah. I hope that was a good answer. Or like that's the very raw answer.
Great answer. Yeah, it's so cool to see all the examples. No? So content, product distribution, you have apparel, and then you have someone who's working on an arcade game. So community protocol, that's also a new thought for me. Is how can you get people, in that community to co-build with your IP, and then they take their own skill sets, and then they can build on top of like the things that you're already doing. And yeah, I mean, it's a collaborative effort, and win and help win also, I guess, comes to mind. So that's really awesome to hear. And yeah, I would like to get to know those people also as within your community who are building those cool things. So Huawei, thank you for that question, and Joe, thank you for sharing a little bit more as well about those people who are building awesome things in the crucial community protocol. Cool, I love hearing that. All right. So we'll still be taking more community questions. We have 10 more minutes, no? So thank you for your community questions, guys. Sige pa, pigain niyo yung utak ni Joe. I love hearing these kinds of stories. All right.
Laban. Game.
All right. So yeah, I guess this one comes from our Facebook Live also. So this one comes from, sorry, I think my internet's a bit choppy, but Justin Carl Nunez. So could you discuss partnerships or collaborations that have been instrumental in Kusho's journey?
Oh my God, I could talk for days about this, but I'll try and keep it a little concise.
Mhm.
What's interesting, it's always tied to specific people, I think, right? So I think instrumental, hmm, I think I'll name a few names because these are the people again who it turned into actual things that we're co-building with them, right?
Shout out.
So and with the caveat that many brands have tried to work with us, but I really felt that we didn't really have enough density yet, and I really wanted to have something that the community was building first. But now we're working with brands and sponsors, all that. So I think number one, I'm going to give a probably give a shout out to is the creator in gaming called Cuckoo, right? Who's also a Coins ambassador actually. I realize now. People know him because he's very public, but people don't know how much actually he supports on the quiet end. And a lot of the vision was actually things we learned by working with him a year prior about the way he built community very selflessly, and me being kind of a business partner who helps the business side. A lot of what he was doing informally and as a brilliant insight contributed to a lot of the community protocols design because of being in the trenches with him and his brand and his community. That's number one. So that was very pivotal to us. I think another I guess key partnership was that we have a partnership now with a company with a product called Yay.tech, which is my blockchain space. And it was actually a company that acquired my company. But the reason they reached out to Kusha was not because of me. They just saw someone on their team was looking for genuine Filipino communities where people, I mean, medyo uso yung mga raid bot and all this stuff, where we weren't doing any raiding, but for some reason, people with our profile picture were actually organically engaging with one another on Twitter. And because of that, we were able to build on our on-chain community on their tech, and they helped to kickstart a lot of like the community tech we were working with because of that. So that was them recognizing, we're very grateful for them to have recognized. Parang, the way they put it was, parang they're onto something. At the time, I didn't even know we were onto something, and they were like, we're onto something. And then now, finally, again, so there are a few partnerships that are being announced over the next 2-3 months that I can't share yet, but are actually, I think, going to be very, very pivotal. And then I guess I'll name two more. We spoke with the UPLB. We worked with the UPLB community earlier this year in February with their science society. And that was very pivotal for us because we were on the ground with students. And, whatever stigma that existed against Web3, computer science students does not exist for their generation, right? And it was so refreshing to see that partnership with the school where they invited us and we spoke a lot. We had speakers from Sky Mavis and the talk, the Pinoy talk to them. I think was like this is the correct place to build for, the correct generation to build for, both economically and sustainably for long term. So yeah, those are some of the key pivotal ones. But again, every product you see and experience and content coming out of Kusha you see now is because of a builder and a community member who wanted to build something and found a home to do it in. So I consider all of those very instrumental.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Joel. It's very inspirational. I get so many ideas as well. So thank you, Justin Carl, for your question from Facebook Live as well. Yeah, we have time for, I guess, one or two more questions. So sige, like while I choose a question, siguro small talk na, Joe, just the interrupt as well our super insightful Q&A. What are you most excited for this coming holiday season?
Web3 related, not Web3 related. Ah.
Any?
I think even crypto, I think, takes a bit of a break in the holidays. I think I'm excited for that. I know crypto doesn't sleep, but I'm a little excited. I think a little bit more than most of the year, and I'm excited to spend more time with my family. Sobrang lazy answer, but to be honest, yeah, I love. I have a family. I have a daughter, and I'm very excited to spend more time with my family. Um, uh, and again, it's not. I don't consider Web3 work, but I just also. It's hard to unplug talaga, and I think the holidays are one of the few times in Web3 I think you kind of can, and I'm excited for that.
Awesome. Okay. So I think I have a question from our Discord now. So I agree, no, Joe. Like it's hard to unplug talaga from Web3, especially like I think you mentioned earlier, with regards to the question about brand. Um, Parang it's very integrated na, no? Like what you're working on, especially if you're in this space with who you are as a person. And I think I can attest to that also, no? Like when you build an alias or like an identity in the space, it will eventually kind of overlap with what you do or who you are personally. So I guess like you mentioned, you want to spend time with your family. Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure a lot of the people who are builders in this space will probably do the same as well. So yeah. Um, let's take this question from our Discord. And I guess this comes from MJO8. So, how are locally led Web3 projects addressing the needs of underrepresented communities in the digital world? So, I guess the word underrepresented, I guess, is pretty broad, I guess. But maybe in some of the ways that you've seen as well, um, yeah, how I guess can go back to that discussion about like how do the projects kind of give a platform to people who um I guess in the old systems or like in the old ways, like crypto really enables that for them, no? So maybe you can also talk about like how has maybe your platform also been able to serve like the community members who, because of their access to the internet, to crypto, they're able to build and collaborate with other people and really, I guess, build something better for themselves and the communities around them.
I think what's cool about Web3 locally, and I think even so, what I understand underrepresented, the way I take that is the more, I guess, less city-based or more rural areas of the country. No, and what I love about Web3 nga is as long as you have internet, the getting support from not only even local builders, honestly, but even global builders is not impossible, right? And you have many initiatives, like let's say the coin. I think YG did a road trip with coin supported, which is basically all around the country, local cities and towns for events about Web3, but also many local, literally like rural barangay level people online, founders or community leaders have done donation drives and relief efforts, raising money globally, fully on chain and fully online lang, and with no barrier to entry because of crypto, right? So I think I think it's less about the locally led Web3 projects as much as uh, there are many talented community owners who now have global access who manage and support underrepresented communities. And I don't know how much of our local projects honestly kind of do that. We're trying, as Kusha, we're trying to support. There's a talented marketer and builder based in Cebu, who her focus is actually um, amassing talent in the Vismin region. That's less, she feels less represented, which is true. I think something's less representative when the global reaches to Metro Manila and Luzon. And she is an example, in my opinion, of a locally led project that's seeing it. So it's really coming from community and leaders. And again, us who are me in Manila, but many others as well, are very happy to support her. So it's really kind of like a network effect of support. And um, I think again, I think if you've been helped in this space as a builder, you're very welcoming to helping other people who are in more rural or underrepresented places. That's just my take of what I see happening, and I'm very happy for. Mm-mm.
Yeah. I guess that's something that I also want to personally explore as well, because I'm also growing in this spaces. Sometimes Metro Manila can really be, a bubble sometimes because all of the events can happen here. But I'm sure, empowering and giving, more, I guess, um, how do I say this? Like, yeah, more opportunities in those areas. It's really about getting those communities together and making those like grassroots efforts, I guess, really come together. So I'm excited to see as well because maybe that's going to be a trend shift that we see, as these communities start coming together and start coming alive, we'll just start to see, more and more names and community builders from, like, as you mentioned, the Vismin area, we start seeing them and they become included in, conversations and online events like, Community Wednesdays. We love to talk all about, like Web3 in the Philippines and crypto in the Philippines. So I'm excited to meet those people as well. And I guess, the platform, we want to build that platform as well for them so that they can also, I guess, preach, their message and to really get discussions going with regards to that community that, is less, or it's less focused nga, from like the city and from Manila. So that'll be super cool to see it. So yeah, I thank you, MJ08, for that question. No? So yeah, unfortunately, oh my god, the time now is already like 9:01. So I think we might have to, Joe, do you have time for one last community question, siguro?
Sure, sure. Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. So I will pull a question, siguro, from our Discord as well. Sige. So
It's very nice to see so many people asking things.
yeah.
That means people are interested, which I think is great for the space. So yeah, go
Mhm.
ahead, go on.
Yeah. Um, all right. Let me just scroll and sweep a little bit through our questions here. Um, all right. I
So take your
think,
time.
yeah, so many questions, no, because like I guess some people they come into the community and like they also get some insight from the answers to your questions, no. So para flowing din yung discussion.
Mm.
Um, yeah. Siguro we can close the session with like a think big or like a visionary kind of question, I guess. So um this question comes from our Discord. It does come off a little, might be a bit broad, but I think, it will really be a good prompt to help you kind of expand, like like what kind of industry are we building for people here, and with that discussion of going from local to global. So this one comes from our Discord from Earl Joe. So he asks, or they ask, how can PH Web3 become a global leader? Ooh, that's a big question, no?
Um, that's a great question. And in fact, I literally in a talk 3 weeks ago, I gave my three ways to do it. Because long story short, my talk was about why I felt that um, not the community, but I think builders. We've outside of gaming, I think most us Filipino, the new generation of builders, I think have lost the sauce a little bit. I wish I could reference my slides, but this is what I think my take on it because I told the audience there I was very frustrated because in the past 3 years we had dropped from number two most interested in crypto in the world to number eight, which I think if you think about it, we have no reason that we should be dropping in interest considering the opportunity we have as a country, right? And then all the bear market FUD things that happened, that's not unique to the Philippines. That's global. So why are we still further down? Right. So I gave my three reasons. I gave kind of like what is happening now, how is the world changing, and what I think is the way to answer it. Right. So I'll just get to the main answer.
Mhm.
So number one I put was that uh, we need to make it sexier to build in this industry. right? It comes kind of like tied into as well what I talked about earlier. But we need to build it in a way where you can tell your family, and it is not maybe not prestigious yet, but something to be proud of, right? And sometimes I think we copy too many things from abroad and don't try to make it what makes sense for the Philippines. And I think that's kind of like one. So I think we have to consciously make it a better, respectable, uh, sexier place to found and build commerce in. That's number one. So PH Web3 is a global. That's number one. I think the number two was that I think we have to embrace newer working arrangements and newer working styles to reduce attrition and attract better talent to work in the industry. I said that there's a thing called trad creep in the country, and again, don't kill me, coins or anybody else. No, no, I'm just, like this is just my take, right? I've seen many organizations or companies that started up as startups work like startups, and then the moment they get certain amount of success or revenue, all that, all of a sudden they expect their staff to work like everybody like a 9 to 5 in a mature industry. Crypto, and we should not, that's not the way, in my opinion. The world is changing. The way you build and what workers value, talent values, they know they can get it in other ways. And a traditional work setup is not how you're going to keep the talent. Right. That's number two. And then number three, and last, I don't know if I'm super over time here. Number three is last. We have to design better incentives by founders for their staff in crypto. You know, things like why give actual token incentives. Find a way to do the proper ways to make that legal, so that when the company and the tokens actually accrue value, your team should also grow with you. Get DeFi yield, give them better yield than putting their money in a local bank. Why are we in crypto if you don't have those opportunities for your team, right? If not internally, like make it possible or give them the opportunity on DeFi to do it, right? So embrace that you're Web3 to share and own the upside. Actually share it with the community and the staff. Otherwise, again, why are we here? So again, those are for me the three things that I was imparting at that talk of the industry, how we can become a global leader and actually growth hack our way back to the top, or to the top, in my opinion. Ayun. Yan, controversial ish.
Awesome. No, thanks, Joe. Actually, I think that's a great, speaking reminder is really great because I think the trad creep, is like a potential pitfall for Web3 projects now because as, you grow, it's easy to start reverting back to what probably worked before. And then, ayun, like, as you mentioned, better working systems, better incentives by founders. These will really not just keep the people in our companies and our projects, but also invite them to co-grow the narrative in those better systems, as you mentioned, so that the whole industry pushes forward together. So Earl, Joe, I guess thanks for that question. And Joe, thanks for those 3 points. No, yeah, I guess that's all the time we have. But thank you so much, Joe, for making the time for showing up on Community Wednesdays again. And yeah, I guess we can do some closing remarks, and then I guess where can the community, especially first time viewers, find you? So you put your Twitter there. So
Yes, that's my Twitter, OX NASA. Again, the best thing I think, obviously, I'd love for you guys, if you're Filipinos, to get involved with Kusho. You can follow Kusho World without an O on Twitter at Kusho World. KushoWorld.com, complete spelling, KushoWorld.com, all the info's there. Join our Discord, discord.gg/Kusho. You can check our shop on Shopify and on Instagram. We're kind of everywhere, thankfully now. And you'll find a fun community on Discord, an amazing, fun set of people on Twitter. We now have even as of today, we seems like we have a fitness sub community. Just a lot of people who want to get more fit in the space, and we're now trying to support them too. It's a fun place to build. I encourage builders to kind of join and to see what's up. So that's it. I'd like to think it's a great place. But baka biased ako.
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you so much, Joe, for that. And yeah, thank you so much to all of our viewers across FB Live, Discord, and X for tuning in not to participate in our AMA session with Joe on taking a PH Web3 project from local to global. And there's so many facets, I guess, and areas to our discussion tonight. From industry standards to talking about the project to how you manage and collaborate with your community, going back to that community protocol that you mentioned. So lots of new things also that I learn from the guests every week, and how can I guess inspire like the coin community as well to and invite them to be a part of those discussions, because this is a very like inclusive and I guess inviting community when it comes to being pro collaboration. So yeah, thank you so much, Joe, for your time and for your insights. I really appreciate it. And yeah, if there are no other things that you'd like to bring up as well, thank you again, and I guess have a good evening to the rest of the Coin community. And we'll see you again next week for Coin Community Wednesdays. So thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.
The Philippines' first and leading crypto exchange, coins.ph. 60 cryptocurrencies to trade, like Bitcoin, USDT, and more. Enjoy low fees, favorable rates, and a smooth cash in and out experience. Download coins.ph now.